Whenever there's a problem, politicians claim the answer is more laws, more regulation. Obamacare will make medicine better. Dodd-Frank will stop problems in banking. I mean, this is how bureaucrats and lawyers think. They believe paper and procedure will fix things. America's lawyer-in-chief sure believes that.
We need smart regulations to prevent irresponsible behavior.
Smart regulation. They always say that. Apparently, this Dodd-Frank, this is smart. Except after the collapse of Enron, a law called Sarbanes-Oxley was supposed to stop financial fraud, but it didn't stop Bernie Madoff or the credit bubbles, mortgage scams. So we get more rules. Government is a hammer. Government's force. And when you have the hammer, everything looks like a nail. But there is a better way, a private sector way to protect consumers without force, the power of reputation. I won't go to a movie anymore without checking the Rotten Tomatoes website. First, when I travel, I always look at what other tourists wrote about hotels where I might stay. I trust this much more than any certificate of approval from a Department of Business Regulation. Libertarian radio host Jason Lewis agrees. Liberal radio host Alan Combs says no,
Those are great props, but, you know, look at all the trees who died for that, huh?
This is going to stop financial fraud, and that's just the beginning.
Look, there's always going to be crooks. But if we hadn't had the collapse in 2008, maybe we wouldn't have need to have further legislation to stop financial fraud.
Dodd-Frank merely codified the laws that we had in place and then put them on steroids, including bailouts, telling lenders that if you redline or discriminate, the DOJ is going to sue you. But if you make loans to low-income people, then you're predatory lending. They had no choice, and now the government's telling them under Dodd-Frank, you keep doing exactly as we say at HUD or any place else. And if you do, we'll have a orderly liquidation. You know what that's code for in Dodd-Frank? A bailout.
If there was
a bailout,
there was a lack of regulation that caused the economic collapse. Republicans for years and conservatives and certainly libertarians, less government, less regulation, and then the government collapsed because and Dodd-Frank corrects some of it.
But wait. It was lack of regulation that caused the credit bubble?
Lack of regulation that caused the economic collapse. That had, you know, let's just have less regulation, less government. Let's just not care. And people, how did it cause the collapse?
Yeah. There was a bubble.
No one was minding the store.
Alan, we've got 4,000.
And you had these banks going and doing whatever they wanted to do and merging banks and credit unions and lending institutions that could do all these different things, and there was no dividing line.
You know, the moral hazard that was the cause of this was the fact that the government came in there and said, we will insure all of these bad mortgages under Fannie and Freddie implicitly. Now it's explicit. So once you tell somebody, don't worry, go ahead and make a bad loan. Remember the Keating Five and the S&L crisis? They tend to make bad loans. Now with Dodd-Frank, this is the large bailout, and they're going to keep taking risk and more risk, and we're going to go.
Had they not bailed out the government, where would we be now? Had they not saved the banks? Had George W. Bush, a conservative, not gone in and done something to prop up the economic underpinning of this country, we'd be better off?
Yes.
How would we be better off?
Market discipline. No privileges, no bailouts. If you lose money, you lose your own money.
The United States is the center of the economic system of the world. If those banks had collapsed, it would have affected the entire world.
Look, how many times have we bailed out companies only to bail them out again?
Was the Chrysler bailout a mistake?
Yes.
Yes, it was.
But actually, it saved the auto industry.
What you would have is all those assets would be dispersed among profitable companies. They wouldn't go
so
anywhere.
You claim.
All right, let's move on to another bubble, the college tuition bubble. Tuition costs have risen at more than double the rate of inflation for years, and I say that, too, was caused partly by government. They increased student loans, pushed people to go to college. But now many grads are deep in debt, can't find jobs. President Obama has a solution.
I'm directing my administration to come up with a new rating system for colleges.
Is that a good idea?
A rating system for colleges?
A government rating system.
Why shouldn't the consumer know what they're getting, whether it's colleges or whether it's OSHA?
They do know. They got U.S. News and World Report, the Princeton Review.
Are you saying, oh, let's just go online to some website that we don't know much about, or that we don't know really who's running it. Let's just see. We don't need that. We just need websites. We don't need the government,
Government can do it better.
Sometimes.
The websites you deride actually have to meet a market test. If I go to a website and they say this is a great college and it turns out not to be a great college, website doesn't stay in business too long.
Yeah, but you don't know
if government makes a mistake, who gets fired?
You don't know till you get there whether it's a great college or not.
And another way government supposedly protects us is by requiring certain workers to have a license. It started with doctors and lawyers, but government always grows. So now bureaucrats license dozens of professions: barbers, florists, yoga instructors, even interior designers and tour guides. Another good thing?
Yes.
You go to a new dentist.
Yeah.
Do you check his government license? No, you ask friends for a recommendation.
You know, because you're in the United States, that he has a license, that he's licensed to do business.
No, people still cheat. They're always
So
catching
anybody
up on
can
license.
So anybody can hang up a shingle and say I'm a dentist without any certification or regulation whatsoever.
And because
That's
you
fine
wouldn't
with you.
rely on government, you would check the private listing. Is this a good dentist? Did he go to school? There'd be other testing
John,
operations that
Alan's
would
got
be
a point.
better.
Alan's got a point. There's only one thing worse than thalidomide, an unlicensed yoga instructor.
Preventing someone from getting hurt is one thing, but what about all the good stuff we don't get to have because of these barriers?
What do you not have?
One example. The licensing rules keep sometimes the best people out of the profession. They outlaw improvements. I'm a stutterer. Remember the movie The King's Speech? It told the true story of how the King of England finally got help for his stuttering by going to an unlicensed speech therapist. The King's licensed experts told him he'd speak better if he'd smoke a cigarette.
My physicians say it relaxes the throat.
They're idiots.
They've all been knighted.
Makes it official then.
At first, the King criticizes his new speech therapist.
No training, no diploma, just a great deal of nerve.
Lock me in the tower.
So it's just entertainment in the movie, but it's true. It was an unlicensed guy who helped him,
Well, wait a
an
minute, there was
unlicensed operation that helped me.
Because of a scene in a movie, that I'm not sure really makes the point that we should not have any regulation so that the consumer knows when they go into a business that they are protected, that they're not going to some quack who has not been vetted in some way.
Do you deny that the rules prevent some new ideas from starting?
Why would it prevent new ideas from starting?
Because it doesn't fit the government mold.
Do you know who likes the licensing requirements? The people who are in the business. It makes it much more difficult for competitors to come in so they can charge more and you don't have a market competition, Alan. How is that a good thing?
I think having a bar to entry is a good thing. If there's no bar to entry, any quack can go and do any business they want.
One last example is softball for you. OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health
A softball for me. They've all been softballs, John. Okay, so
factories are dangerous. We said we got to have a law, and look at this chart.
Right.
Since OSHA was created, workplace fatalities have dropped. All these lives have been saved.
All right.
A great
so
thing.
need I make any more point than what that chart already meant?
Yes, you need to, because now look at this chart. It shows what was going on even before OSHA. Workplace fatalities were already dropping.
Then so they dropped how much more with OSHA?
The slope of the line is the
All right.
same.
I
Things
think-
get better on their own in a free society.
Not in every single case. Workers deserve to be protected. If you look back into how many centuries ago or how many decades ago, and we could trust every boss, we could trust every manufacturer, we could trust every place a worker would go. That's why we had to develop unions in this country, because we could not trust employers.
But Alan, in the,
trust safe working
in the
conditions.
19th century, you had workplace accidents. Kids were working on farms. It was horrible. Why? Because people were trying to survive. Once a society, through capitalism, gets profitable and prosperous, then all of a sudden, kids can go to college. People have a better workplace.
I think that's what's happening.
That's right.
And that's what's happening now with OSHA.
capitalism.